It's been a normal day for Orian. He woke up, had breakfast with his parents, walked through the streets, contemplating all the things that he had discovered in the night, all those things he had read in the books that he had borrowed from the library the day before. In fact, he had been so interested in that one line he'd read in the Tome of the Ages, he decided, yes, he was going to go back to the library now. Screw it, that he was supposed to meet his friends. History and the library was more important in his life. He walked down the cobbled streets, thinking again about that line he read. What did it mean? Why was it in that book? Xander would know. He was in the library all the time. He worked there. He should know every book in the library. He spent all day there. Orian wished he could spend all day in the library. Alas, he had other things to do. Walking up to the grand library doors, he marvelled at the smell that emanated from this ancient building. You could smell it as you got closer. The knowledge, maybe the dust, inside all those books. Everything he had yet to grasp, all that information he could absorb, was just sitting on the shelves in this beautiful building. He climbed up the stairs and walked into the library, again examining all the carvings and ornate statues that lined the walls going into the main hall. He'd seen them thousands of times, but still occasionally saw little details he hadn't seen before. Under his arm he carried the Book of Ages, which he had been reading the night before. It was a large book, and Orian wasn't the biggest built man in the city. He wasn't so much stumbling under its weight as lumbering along with it. He was happy to put it down on a table as he went to search for another book that would pique his interest maybe, contain some information regarding the line he'd read the night before. It was on shelf 302 that he found the book he was looking for. It wasn't particularly old. It wasn't particularly dusty. It did have some interesting golden lines on the spine, but apart from that, it was a wholly unremarkable book. He took it off the shelf, as he always did, carefully, just in case one of the old, crumply pages would fall out. Not with this book, but you never know. He took it to the table where he'd laid his other books and sat down quietly, breathing in deeply as he opened the pages, hoping to absorb through osmosis some of the information held in its bindings.
Hey, Orian. Nice to see you in the library again. I knew you'd be back.
Hey, Xander. Thank you. Well, yes, I was reading last night, and I couldn't stay away. Today was the day that I was really hoping I'd get my head around that mystery of Badugar, the demon that I told you about the other day.
How could I forget? That was a rather terrifying story you were telling.
The two friends had spent many a day, many an evening, in fact late into the night, discussing various myths and legends, some of which were contained in the books in the library. Orian had a fascination with the history of the world he was in, and Xander didn't have anyone else to talk to. Xander didn't like interacting with people much. He spent most of his time in the library. He spent all of his time in the library. Orian enjoyed having someone listen with rapt attention as he talked about Badugar and Ifutar and all of the various myths and legends around the gods of old.
I thought you might find them interesting. Bug your claws! Get away!
At that precise moment, a child had run past Xander, rushing to get to one of the illustrated children's books in the back of the library. Little children scared Xander. He wasn't quite sure what it was about them. Was it their inability to sit quietly? Was it their crazy hair and dirty faces? They were known for carrying germs and diseases, and he didn't want to touch them, or them to touch him. He liked it in the library, where it was clean, Dusty, but only old germs that he had spent a lifetime around already. Old germs were the best germs. They don't make them like they used to. Actually, Xander, I was reading the Tome of the Ages last night. Orian turned around to reach for the book he'd been reading the previous night. When he turned back around, holding the tome in his arms, the look on Xander's face puzzled him. What is it, Xander? You look like you saw something jump out of one of the books.
Did you hang your clothes up differently last night, Orion? You've got something pointing out of your back.
Orian tried pulling the cloak down to conceal the stubs on his back. It was a week ago he first noticed the protrusions. A week had passed, and what first were just simple nodules on his shoulders had grown into what he could only describe as the tiniest of wings. Like a dragonfly or a bumblebee, except thicker and more leathery. To call them wings was a ridiculous idea, but he had searched the tomes for several nights to find illustrations that were anything like what he had seen in the mirror, and all he could conclude was that, yes, indeed, he had baby wings protruding from his shoulders. So, Xander, I don't really know what's, happening to me.
You don't know how to hang your clothes up properly. It's okay, it happens to everyone. Just don't let the children touch it, that's what I always say.
Well, you see, I've noticed over the last week these things on my back. They started small and now they've grown bigger.
I'm sure it's nothing, Orion. You're growing up. Things change in our bodies as we grow up. It's nothing, I'm sure.
Well, I've looked through several books to try and work out what they are. I've only come to one conclusion, Xander. I think they might be wings.
Wings? You're not going to fly out of here, are you? I won't have anyone left to talk to. Besides, they just look like tiny little things. Can I see them?
We're in a library, Xander. I can't exactly strip naked in here.
It's okay. No one will see. Just show me quickly.
Orion quickly turned and lifted the back of his cloak to show the stubby wings growing out of his back. At the sharp intake of breath from behind him, he quickly lowered his cloak again and turned around.
They do look like wings, I have to say.
Yes, I know they look like wings. What else can they be? Also, I haven't told you the other thing.
The other thing?
Yes, the other things, really. Just run your hand through my hair.
Run my hand through your hair. Okay.
Xander took a shaky hand and ran it through Orion's hair, stopping when he reached the sharp nodules protruding from his skull.
What are those?
I don't know, Xander. They came at about the same time as the, wings. They just started growing. They started off flat and just like bumps. I thought they were spots or boils or something, but now they've started turning sharp. Like
Horns?
Like horns. I've tried to read up on the presence of horns in people before, and apart from curses, there's nothing that says anything about why a normal teenage boy should have horns protruding from his skull.
Shh, keep your voice down.
Yes, sorry, I'm just very nervous.
People are starting to stare.
Okay, yes, no, I don't want that. I don't know what to do, Xander. I haven't been cursed, okay? At least, I don't remember being cursed.
Are you sure you haven't had a run-in with any witches recently?
Witches aren't a thing, Xander.
I know.
You've been reading too many fantasy novels again.
Well, maybe. Maybe you've been cursed by the gods.
The gods aren't here anymore. They left us thousands of years ago.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's a book about this somewhere down aisle 500. Let me go have a look.
Don't leave me, Xander. I've just told you the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and you're about to go and bugger off.
I'm sorry. I get a little bit nervous in these kind of situations. You've told me what is effectively a great big secret, and I have to try and keep it inside. How do you expect me to not be a nervous wreck for the rest of the day? I was nervous enough already with Mr. Boggins putting me on report.
Okay. Let's just take some deep breaths. It's nothing. I'm sure I can see one of the doctors and just have them removed, and no one needs to know anything about it. I'm gonna go and talk to Flavian. I'm gonna come back and see you later, okay, Xand?
Okay. But tell me what he says, all right? I want to know everything.
Orian picked up the books from the table, forgetting several of them, and ran from the library as fast as his feet could carry him. He was going to see Flavian, and Flavian would fix this mess he'd gotten himself into.